Manish doesn't need much introduction. He was a former INB minister, one of the most articulate and informed member of parliaments that we have in the opposition now. Not just opposition in the political spectrum, we can say. He's been in politics for a very long time and has suffered some personal losses when his state, Punjab, was going through militancy. So he has seen politics up close in very many ways. Manish, we are in a certain juncture of politics, particularly when you see it from the perspective of your party, which is Indian National Congress. It has been in opposition for 2 terms in Lok Sabha, which is never happened before, and it is again and again the opposition and its role is being put to question. In fact, when Prime Minister Modi was speaking, replying to the President's address, he took a dig at the opposition and said the only way the opposition can be united is a fear of the ED. Do you think that an opposition unity outside the parliament is a possibility? We do see some kind of coordination and opposition unity within the parliament on certain issues. Now on the issue of Adani and the demand for a JPC probe. Earlier on the question of the farmers, we had seen some opposition coordination on Pegasus issue in more or less on issue-based understanding. But is a larger opposition unity possible outside the parliament?
Santhal, thank you very much for those very, very kind words. Before I set out to answer that question, let me ask you a counter question. Why is a broader opposition unity really required?
The simple answer is, what was the BJP's vote share in 2019, which is a most oft-quoted statistics, which is 37.12%, nearly 38%, which is improvement on what the vote share was in 2014. And then what is the rest? The rest is the opposition. So that is the simple question. Simple answer to that. That is why the question.
So let me answer that straight off the bat. You know, there is a physics to politics and there's a chemistry to politics. And 2 + 2 always does not make 4 in politics. And the reason why I say that is, if you were to rewind back to 2014, or rather 2013, because we are exactly 375 days from the next Lok Sabha elections. So you had a scenario whereby the then UPA government was facing headwinds, but there wasn't a clear challenger to the incumbent prime minister or the incumbent dispensation which had emerged. In the May of 2013 in Goa, when the BJP decided to anoint Prime Minister Modi as their prime ministerial candidate, a clear challenger to the incumbent emerged. And so therefore, at this point in time, if your question or the subtext of your question is that how does the opposition intend to replace the incumbents who have been in government for 10 years? So my straight answer to that is that the opposition would require a prime ministerial candidate or plural prime ministerial candidates who can or who are in a position to articulate to this country as to how they would like to run it differently from the way it has been run over the past 9 years. And the reason why I say that is because it's not a matchstick on matchstick. So therefore, because the BJP was 37% and the rest put together were 50 odd% or whatever it is. You know, you can obviously imagine that I, used to get E for effort at mathematics in school, but that
Nearly
does
60.
not, that does not mean that this is the manner in which it will work out. So, it's just by ensuring a matchstick to matchstick fight, that is one opposition candidate against one BJP candidate, and it's another matter, the BJP is not even present uniformly across the country. In many states, you have the opposition fighting each other. So eventually, if you're looking at a change of government, the sine qua non for that is an identifiable challenger or a series of identifiable challengers who are willing to articulate an alternative vision.
To begin with, I would sort of remind you of 77. There was no clear prime ministerial candidate of that sort. When Congress was a strong single party, it's not a question of replacement of an existing government. It is about, democratic narratives. If there is a strong democratic, one set of narrative is there, what is the counter narrative to that? An opposition unity, the opposition outside parliament at least looks very splintered. Who is fighting whom is not clear. Okay, so there is no clear alternate narrative that emerges. That is why it is probably the talk or the question about opposition unity emerges. It's only now we can see within the parliament there is because there is a demand for JPC, we see some kind of some kind of unity. But once you go out, that is not there. And what is the result that we see? We have seen, Goa and Gujarat is a very good example of splintered opposition. Whereas in Himachal, we saw that there was a cohesive oppositional narrative which was presented. So when that is presented, then BJP is not as invincible as it seems. Of course, BJP is very, very strong in UP. Last election, we saw a kind of SP-BSP counter to that, but that could not hold. Prime Minister's popularity is above most of the leaders put together. All that is there, but it is about the people's option of an alternative, cohesive narrative.
So you've asked a series of questions, and let me answer them one by one. You see, insofar as 1977 was concerned, 1977 was an aberration. An aberration primarily because it was preceded by a 2.5-year emergency. And so therefore, there was an imperative need for those who were in the opposition, and most of them had been in jail, to come together. And the reason it was an aberration was because it collapsed in 3 years. By 1980, Mrs. Indira Gandhi was back as Prime Minister. Insofar as the examples that you gave, whether it is Gujarat or Goa, let us presume that even if the Aam Aadmi Party would not have been present in in Gujarat, would that have essentially translated into a Congress victory? My answer to that is no. And the reason why I say that is because you needed to really focus on that state which was within your grasp in 2017. And by refusing to focus in the manner in which we needed to focus, you let the initiative slip by. Similarly, in Goa, you had multiple people contesting for a very limited space. So that's a legitimate example of, where the opposition actually shoots each other in the foot or in both the feet. But I still come back to my original thesis that this is really the secondary question. The primary question is, who is going to challenge the incumbent? Now, would the Congress party decide that Shri Rahul Gandhi, after his long marathon walk across the length of the country, would be the challenger to the Prime Minister? well, he was the challenger to the Prime Minister in 2019 as the President of the Indian National Congress. Would some of the other opposition parties which are trying to band together, for example, the BRS, the Aam Aadmi Party, etc., would they be able to agree on a common prime ministerial candidate? Till the time that one normative question does not get answered in the affirmative, either singularly or plurally, I think the rest of it is academic.
Is it also because that the Congress doesn't want to give up its identity as a big brother? Though there is not one single state where, except for the 9 states that are going to poll, where Congress has a fighting chance, is perhaps Karnataka and to some extent Madhya Pradesh, is what we are hearing. So still the Congress doesn't want to sort of be on equal ground with some of the very strong regional powers. Is that the problem?
Well, hypothetically, presuming that the Congress is prepared to concede ground, right? And the Congress is prepared to play second fiddle, would that really pave the way for a broader opposition unity? If it does, I don't think the Congress would be averse to playing that role. So therefore, if the Congress feels, and I do think a large number of Congress members of Parliament will have to go back and contest, they do feel that they have an alternative idea of India, which needs to find space in expression. And therefore, under those circumstances, even if you have to concede space to create this architecture of opposition unity, it is worth it. But my fundamental question is that even that sacrifice, would that really pave the way for what you call opposition unity? Because in a large number of states, it's still a direct fight between the Congress and the BJP. For example, you talked about Himachal Pradesh, or for that matter in Haryana. It's almost a direct fight between the Congress and BJP. If you look at Punjab, the BJP at the moment seems completely absent. So under those circumstances,
Roughly 200 seats in Lok Sabha.
And roughly 200 seats, there's a direct fight. So therefore, even if, let's suppose, the Congress was to concede ground in the rest of the 350 seats, hypothetically speaking, would that really pave the way for this matchstick on matchstick fight? And would that matchstick on matchstick fight actually statistically translate into an opposition victory? In my humble estimation, no. I think, clearly the opposition will have to put out a defined alternative, a visible alternative to the incumbent, and then I think build the rest of the infrastructure or the rest of the narrative around that particular person.
So Manish, are you saying that it has increasingly become a presidential election, and to counter somebody like Mr. Modi, who's a charismatic leader with popularity, mass leader, you need a singular alternative, not just in terms of narrative, but an individual who can, take him on. Are you saying that?
Well, it's always been a presidential election going back to 1952. It was Nehru. It was Indira Gandhi. It was Rajiv Gandhi. When there was a challenge to Rajiv Gandhi, it got built around an individual called Vishwanath Pratap Singh. Ultimately, despite the fact that Mr. Advani led the Rath Yatra, the broader consensus around the BJP got built around Atal Bihari Vajpayee's personality. So therefore, it's always been about the individual. So in that sense of the word, Indian democracy has not really been a Westminster parliamentary style democracy. It's always been, for whatever reason, maybe the people who sort of led it were much taller than their contemporaries. It's always been a presidential style democracy.
1984 was, you think, Rajiv Gandhi election, or it was post Indira Gandhi's assassination? That is how most of the state, I remember speaking to Jyoti Basu once, and he singularly, I mean, the left also got, left was very powerful in West Bengal, got wiped out nearly. And he said that it's just that. It's an Indira vote. But you see it differently. It's a presidential election. And whenever there was a counter, there's an alternative government which has come up. I don't think that, when BJP first comes to power, it's a post-Rath Yatra, which is a very short-lived government. That was a vote for the BJP, that idea of Hindutva first getting some kind of a larger vote.
So,
right?
so the answer is very simple. How did NTR survive the decimation? If in 1984, it was actually a tribute for Mrs. Indira Gandhi, or late Mrs. Indira Gandhi, which it was. I am not denying that. The Congress wouldn't have done 415 seats had the nation not thought that they would like to pay tribute to her sacrifice. But in Andhra Pradesh, there was a gentleman, not very well known politically, but he survived that decimation because he was an equally tall leader in his own right in whatever space he was occupying at that point in time. So to answer your question, which again validates my thesis about personalities as opposed to political parties, is that we've almost, and this is not only India, the entire ethos of South Asia. If you look, the basic DNA of South Asia is feudal. You look at Bangladesh, look at Pakistan, look at Sri Lanka, look at India from, let's say, Tamil Nadu all the way till Jammu and Kashmir. The fact is that we have an intrinsically feudal DNA which looks to the individual rather than the organization or the party. And then to answer your question, that if the 1996 government of the BJP was really about the Rath Yatra and about an assertion of Hindutva, why did the BJP then actually choose somebody like Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who had publicly disassociated himself from the Rath Yatra? So therefore, and the answer to that is very clear. And the answer is because Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee's persona was much, much more acceptable to even the larger rank and file of the BJP, not to talk about the other opposition parties they finally brought together and ran the 17-month government, and then from 1999 to 2004. So essentially there are 4 or 5 elements. You see, number one, ideology. What you are seeing in Indian politics at this point in time is the complete death of ideology, right? So therefore, I do not think there is really ideology which is at play. Number two, what you have is, in place of ideology, a battle of contested narratives, right? So therefore, there is a certain narrative which has been run for 9 years. Can the opposition offer an alternative narrative? I think that's the fundamental question. Number three is, of course, about the leadership. And number 4 is about the organization. And number 5, whether you like it or not, is about the financial resources that you can put behind your campaign. And anybody who's able to get these 4 elements, these 4 moving parts in order, will be in the fight in 2024. And that's the fundamental challenge of aligning these 4 moving parts.
So there are 2 things that come out of it. Are you basically saying that it is very difficult, in a roundabout way, very difficult to take on personality or personality cult of Mr. Modi and the narrative that they have set out? Oppositional unity is of any sort is not possible, and you are saying that it can be attempted, but it is not possible. Is that what you're trying to say?
In fact, I'm saying the exact reverse of that. The reason why I'm saying the exact reverse of that is, because I've had the chance of actually walking in some parts of this country, not very extensively, but briefly. And what I do sense is that there is a fair amount of restlessness on the ground. It's not visible because India traditionally has invested itself in the ballot box. So therefore, we tend to keep quiet till the time we really go and press the button. But there is economic distress on the ground. Inflation is hurting people, right? The last couple of years have not been easy. So that restlessness really requires a lightning rod around which it needs to crystallize. And therefore, the moment that lightning rod is available, and essentially it could just be anybody, you will find that the change which will come about would be something which you perhaps never expected or anticipated. And I'll give you an example to validate that. Till the code of conduct kicked in Punjab, right? We had changed the chief minister, we had put in a new chief minister. Of course, we were trying our best to defeat each other. We were leaving no stone unturned. But despite that, till the code of conduct kicked in, there was a sense that the Congress is coming back. The moment the code of conduct kicked in, things transformed dramatically. And the Aam Aadmi Party, which even today does not have a presence on the ground in Punjab, was given an overwhelming mandate of 92 seats. Something which even the Akali Dal BJP or the Congress at its zenith has never got. So, therefore, today the power of social media has actually reduced the gap which an incumbent has or somebody with an entrenched organization has, which traditionally used to play to its advantage. So today, if you have a block committee or if you have a booth committee or a block committee or a district committee, you have the infrastructure on the ground. That does not translate into a political victory because the scalability of social media ensures that notwithstanding the absence of that structure, you are able to get your narrative and message across to the last person. And so, what I'm trying to repeatedly stress is rather than doing this mathematical calculation, which some people in the opposition are doing, that if we do a matchstick on matchstick fight, we are assured of a victory because they are 37% and we are 63%. I finally got my math right. And I essentially do not buy that. I think when the people of this country will go out and vote, they will look for who they are voting for. You have a prime minister who's been there for 9 years, and as you rightly said, his popularity at the moment seems to be far greater than all the other people put together. But then if there is a credible challenger who emerges, this can flip very, very quickly. And the reason why I say not one challenger, even if let's suppose there is a multiplicity of challengers, there are 2 or 3 people who put themselves out and say that, yes, I am putting myself out as the next Prime Minister of India. This is the platform, this is the agenda that I have. I want you to have faith in me. I will tell you that when the Aam Aadmi Party was fighting elections in Punjab, they were actually asking Congress leaders all the time, we don't have candidates, if there are certain people you can recommend. And those guys actually won by, 50,000 votes, 60,000 votes in an assembly election. Something which is completely and absolutely unheard of. So it's a very transformed reality. And I think it's open season. There is nothing foregone. And it's, as I said, Narendra Modi only emerged in the May of 2013. So I think the next 1 year is going to be really interesting.
You are saying that chemistry and sudden changes is sometimes what clinches an election. And Mr. Modi also came in 2014 around 2013 that he emerged as a prime ministerial candidate. And then there was a sweep. But is there a conversation that is happening within the opposition? There are so many issues, it seems, but opposition sometimes have not been able to effectively use those issues to bring or make a connect with the people. Or even when it is not a people-oriented issue, say for example, there is a big debate going on about the executive and judicial powers, about the collegium system. Is there a conversation in the opposition on those issues? So they brick by brick you develop your, an understanding within the opposition forum. Is there any effort? Earlier there used to be those kind of meetings, Tuesday meetings and Friday meetings.
Well, Sanfana, in my little understanding as a student of politics, I don't think the opposition has ever brought about a change in this country. The change has always come about when the people have become the opposition. So therefore, when people become, do you think Morarji Desai defeated Indira Gandhi or Jagjeevan Ram defeated Indira Gandhi? Indira Gandhi was defeated because the people became the opposition to her. So in this country, when that restlessness starts crystallizing, it is the people who become the opposition, the leaders become irrelevant. So under those circumstances, that is why I say it's not visible, but as someone who represents a purely rural constituency, 1,500 villages, 11 small towns. Mr. Chawla is from our part of the world. He's very familiar about what I'm talking about, right? When I go there, this inflation, this economic distress, unemployment, it's hurting people, right? They are not speaking out, right? But the moment they find that yes, there is an alternative, it doesn't even it is not even important that the person has an all India organization. It is not even important that he is equally well known across the length and breadth of this country. That the transmissive power of social media, because unfortunately the less said about mainstream media, the better it is. Since I've been minister, I really do not want to cross a boundary. But that's completely secondary. And yes, there is, I will say this very emphatically, there is a yearning for change in this country. There is a restlessness. There is a palpable restlessness. And it is really for the opposition to harvest it.
But do you think that even in a rural constituency, when it is issues like unemployment and inflation, can that be when religious identity or national issues like a Balakot comes in, that can be a counter to that? People forget about we have seen in election after election, and two elections certainly, the last election certainly, where, people tend to forget about the hardships.
Well, I think again, this Balakot effect of the 2019 election is overrated. The opposition actually found it as a very convenient excuse to explain their own loss. And I say this with the fullest sense of responsibility. I come from a constituency which contributes per capita possibly the maximum to the Indian Armed Forces, if you look at it district-wise, right? Punjab as a state contributes even today, after that pro rata system came in, 17.7% to the Indian Army alone. How come we won 8 out of the 13 seats in Punjab? How come Balakot never impacted Punjab? How come it had an impact across the country, but that area which sends 17.7% of its young men and women now to the armed forces chose to react in a different way altogether? So I think in 2019, again, with great respect, people thought that Mr. Narendra Modi needs to be given another chance. And the reason why I say that is because you look at the incumbency cycles in India. Incumbency cycles have become very long. Dr. Manmohan Singh was also Prime Minister for 10 years. You know, Mr. Naveen Patnaik has been Chief Minister for 22 years. Mr. Chandrasekhar Rao has been Chief Minister for 10 years. There are a couple of Congress Chief Ministers who've been there for Mrs. Sheila Dikshit was there for 15 years. So incumbency cycles have become longer. So therefore, I think 2020, there are 375 days or 370 days left between now and the next general elections. And these 370 days are going to be very interesting to watch. It is really open season.
Okay, thank you, Manish, for taking all the questions and replying in great detail. And, saying that the opposition really doesn't need to do anything, the people will rise. When the people rises...
The opposition needs to find a leader. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
The people will rise, but the opposition needs to find a leader.
Opposition in search of a leader. Okay, thank you so much.